This is the Power Producers Podcast, where we are refining and redefining the sales game.
Rule number one is you have to believe in yourself. You're the only one who doesn't think you belong in this appointment. The prospect has already validated your existence by scheduling time with you. Get it through your head you belong here, go in there, crush it, and close the deal.
A place where sales professionals can come to learn from other sales professionals and thought leaders that have mastered their craft.
The difference between a good salesperson and a best-in-class salesperson is only 2 minutes. By spending an extra 2 minutes on what you might think is a mundane task in the sales game, you separate yourselves from the pack, you grow your book of business, you close more deals, and you retain your accounts.
As well as their peers who are still striving for perfection to achieve their why.
I have a wife and 4 kids. Failure is not an option.
Real sales professionals, real stories, real results. Are you ready to feel the power?
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Power Producers Podcast, where we are refining and redefining the sales game. And today, I am flying solo. Mr. Kyle Houck left the COVID cave and decided to get himself vaccinated, so he is sitting in line waiting to get his arm pricked. But I actually upgraded, and I've got Erik Garcia and Matt Morris on with us to talk about all of the cool stuff they're doing with their podcast, with Erik's financial planning practice, with Matt's counseling practice, and then what they've done to morph all of that stuff together and create a really cool training opportunity for other counselors to gain continuing education as a result of going through that. So we're going to talk about all of that stuff today as quickly as we can. I'm going to say, hey, guys, what's going on? Give a little bit of a background of who you are, where you came from. Garcia, you are officially the first person to be a repeat guest.
All right. Really?
Yes.
Dang, dude. That is, I'm honored.
If you want the order, you got to ask for the order, man.
Shoot, man. So about us, I am Erik Garcia, officially the first person to be a repeat guest on the Power Producers
Got to go right at the
podcast.
top.
That's really all. That's mic drop. That's all I got to say. That's it.
Yeah.
Boom.
Done.
No, I am an agency owner in New Orleans. I'm also a financial advisor. I was in insurance first, then I left the insurance world, became a financial advisor, and we had a family agency. My dad was captive, and kind of in post-Katrina New Orleans, I saw that there was still a lot of opportunity to start an independent agency. So I started an independent agency along with originally my brother as my first partner. I have a new partner now. My brother went back to engineering, but most of my work's on the financial advising side. Certified financial planner. So we build financial plans for people. We help them stick to their financial plans. We invest people's money. Kind of the everyday financial advisor stuff. I would say one of the things that is probably unique about my practice is probably the work that I started doing with Matt many, many years ago, which led me down this path of really embracing behavior finance, which really recognizes the emotions and the behaviors that go behind people's money decisions, right? And David, you and I have talked about the Millionaire Next Door and really understanding people's habits and their behaviors that lead to financial success. So it's been a passion of mine working alongside of or working kind of collaborating with the counselors really taught me to understand people and how to move people to where they need to go and where they want to go, and really just understanding those behaviors, those biases, and all those things that prevent them from having success.
It's like the Wayne Gretzky quote, man, you teach people to skate to where the puck's going to be, not where it's at.
Boom. Yeah.
You know, I would also argue with you, man, that you're also unique in the fact that you run an insurance agency, so you understand the unique challenges that agency principals face, which gives you the ability to provide financial advice that somebody who's a regular financial planner without that experience might not necessarily know to give.
Yeah, it's a grind, man. Like, I understand the grind of running an agency, and I'm sure we'll talk about this at some point, and just the hours that we have to put in to run an agency. But here's the thing. Here's the first hot take. As agency principals, the majority of our net worth is tied up in our business.
Guilty as charged.
And we talk all day long about diversification, and look, and rightfully so, because our businesses, I mean, some of the growth rates in some of our practices is fantastic. I mean, to invest in a new producer, it's a great investment. I tell business owners all the time, not just agency owners, but business owners, say, look, I cannot earn you the same rate of return that you potentially can earn in your small business. But if we believe in diversification and we believe in all these foundational investment principles, then it's prudent and it's good stewardship to have something outside, not to have all your money tied up in one entity.
Well, I would also say you probably, without intentionally trying, couldn't lose them as much money as their small business could lose them as well. So, I mean, there's something to be said for that. Matt, before Erik continues to dominate the conversation, why don't you give everybody sort of the 10,000-foot overview of your story?
Yeah, thanks, David, for having us on. And yeah, Erik, I was wondering when I was going to get to jump in, but I'm a talker too. Hey, I'm Dr. Matt Morris. I'm a couples therapist, family therapist, and a professor of counseling here in New Orleans. So I teach people all day long to do counseling, and I've had a practice for years in New Orleans that focuses on relationships and primarily couples therapy. So when you work with couples, you're going to be addressing issues that are related to finance and money and how they're making financial decisions or managing their money together. And so over the years, I've worked with so many clients that had financial issues as part of their story. It made sense to me to reach out to and collaborate with a financial advisor, a finance guy. I didn't know always what they were called. I didn't know that much about the industry, but I just needed some finance guys in my life. So Erik and I are friends, and we have our work. We found ways for our work to overlap and collaborate. We also do train other therapists to incorporate kind of financial assessments into their work with clients. I mean, if you think about issues that clients might bring to counseling, life stressors, job stressors, career stressors, that incorporates money. And so counselors need to be asking their clients about finances. And counselors will avoid topics that they don't feel very competent in. Counselors will avoid questions that they don't want to ask themselves. And so helping counselors become a little bit more adept at talking about finance and addressing finance and asking financial questions has been some of Erik and I's work over the last few years. And then we also have this podcast, Building Us. It's the Building Us podcast, where we look at the intersection of love and money and relationships, and all of that's good stuff together. And so we're finding lots of ways to work together. And really, our two fields, mental health and financial health, really overlap a lot.
Agreed. So I can tell you from personal experience, and I'm not going to turn this into a commentary on what we do and don't believe as far as what Dave Ramsey preaches and talks about, because I know that Erik and I both have some opinions that differ from his teachings. But I want to open this up because I think this is important. I think, having been through this, one of the most important things that somebody can do, and I live this every single day with regard to money, is when you're communicating with your spouse, that communication has to be intentional and it has to be planned. One of the things that I learned early on with my wife is that she wanted to talk about money the second I came home. I didn't want to talk about money the second I came home. I wanted to take my shoes off, sit down, eat dinner, find out what happened with the kids at school, and ignore anything that could potentially cause an uprising in the house. And I don't remember which book it was. I honestly feel like Dave Ramsey's books are all the same book. They just are rearranged with a different cover. But he made a comment in there that if you're going to have money conversations, you need to schedule that time so that both people participating in that conversation are anticipating that conversation and they know what they're walking into. And that one minor thing that we established very early in our relationship has led to us having literally zero money fights. Zero. That's the only thing that we had to do. we both have spending problems. My wife and I both love to spend a lot of money on stuff, and we've been blessed with the ability to do that without creating, long-lasting financial damage to ourselves. But we also understand that we have to communicate about those things. And so by us establishing those ground rules of, if either one of us is going to make a purchase of more than $100, we need to talk to the other one about it first. If, we're going to have a conversation about money, then we're going to schedule that for a 30-minute or an hour conversation. We're going to write our budget and work on it together and make sure that we agree on it and sign off on it. And, it's interesting because if you knew my family, you would realize that I'm married to an alpha male. So it is very, very challenging sometimes because my wife is probably as driven or more driven than what I am. And
No way.
I'm pretty high strung.
No way.
So it's crazy. But I mean, I'm interested in your thoughts on that because I have to believe that's one of the biggest problems people have is they have the big blow up because they just don't know how to have that conversation in real time without it actually being anticipated and planned.
Yeah. And if I can just broaden this frame a little bit, and just kind of talk a little bit about relationship theory for a second. I mean, in almost every relationship, we see some version of a pursuer-distancer dynamic, where in a two-person relationship, one partner is pursuing a topic that the other one is distancing from. And so if that is about money, and one person in the relationship is pursuing, let's talk about money, and the other person is distancing that or trying to avoid it, trying to not have that conversation, we always want to protect the distancer. The pursuer has all the energy. We need to protect the distancer because what will happen is the distancer will back up, get into a corner or feel stuck in a corner and finally blow up. And it wreaks havoc on the relationship. And so what we need to do is provide some framework around the distancer so that they know when and how they can have these conversations and how they're going to go. And so in your example, David, if we could take the distancer, in this case you, and say, what if we scheduled these conversations? What if they weren't just launched upon you in the fly? What if, like at work, somebody had to book an appointment with you and you knew how long the appointment was? You know whether there was a hard stop. There's an agenda. You know what's going to be discussed, what's not going to be discussed. You know that it's not a one-time thing, that if we don't get to everything in the agenda, we can schedule another appointment and handle it another time. If you can provide that kind of framework around the conversation, it makes it so much more successful to the extent that you're saying you and your spouse don't fight about money because you have this framework built around it. So smart. And it really is important for all of us in relationship to look at the way in which we might be a pursuer or distancer on any kind of particular topic.
I've never heard you talk about the pursuer and distancer like that, Matt. That's actually pretty helpful. I guess I'm thinking about interactions with couples and talking about money. What I find, and Matt, this is something I've learned from counselors, and I'm learning all the lingo, man. Like I feel like I could probably go
you have a minor in counseling at this point.
I feel like
I want to be very clear. I am neither qualified or degreed to discuss anything at all that a counselor would. So everybody take my opinion for a grain of salt. I just know what works in my house.
Yeah, and I think that's what you just said, what works in your house, and everybody is different. So when I sit down and I talk to someone about investments, I can have the same conversation about the same investment portfolio with 10 different people. And the conversation comes out 10 different ways because the things people hear, the way they receive the information, the biases, the fears that they bring to the conversation are all different. And I have to, as a planner, as an advisor, I have to recognize that because they've expressed some financial goal to reach, and I've got to recognize that there's a difference. So here, you and your wife, y'all are each different the way you approach money. And I mean, it's taken me a while. My wife doesn't like talking about money. She just doesn't. People are like, oh, you and your wife must talk about money all the time. She doesn't like talking about money. She's not a big spender. She's pretty frugal. It's just whenever I bring up money, she's for some reason doesn't like it. And what I've learned is that we all bring kind of these experiences from childhood, from our parents, and we
100%. And that's the thing, man. I mean, for us, it's is important for our kids. We have 4 kids that live with us to understand that it's okay to communicate about things. Now, we don't have financial conversations in front of them, but we also don't fight in front of them about money. I mean, so, it's funny, and this is the last Dave Ramsey quote I'm going to use, but I do find this one to be humorous. He talked about when he was a kid, he thought his parents didn't have money or sex, and when he got older, he found out they had both. Right? We don't talk to our kids about that stuff. And I think it's huge, man. I mean, people can graduate high school and not know how to balance a checkbook. Like, what is that? Like, that's something that was ingrained in me when I was younger because I was taught. My oldest son came to me this weekend and said, "Dad, I think the bank gave me $300 for free." I'm like, yeah, that's not how that works. Tell me what. And so I had to go through and basically be a forensic accountant and explain to him what had happened with money transferring from one of his accounts to the other that he actually had initiated and forgotten that he had done. But again, I think that, if you don't have a level of comfort of discussing that with your spouse, then your kids aren't comfortable bringing it up to you. Like, so if I walked in every day after work, and Andrea hits me up and says, "Hey, I really need to talk to you. The power bill came. I want, blah, 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 blah." And I blow up. Well, how likely are my kids going to be if they have a question about money or finances to approach me about it? Because all they associate is anytime mom says anything at all about money, dad hits the roof. I'm not going to say a thing. I'd rather, go homeless and not have any meals than to have to deal with dad's wrath when he walks in the door. So I think that's another important thing, and something that we've consciously done in our home is making sure that the kids realize, hey, it's okay to have this conversation, but it's best if it's planned.
Yeah. You said something.
Well,
Go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say planned and then modeled. I think it is important for your kids to actually see you and your spouse talk about money. Something my wife and I have been doing lately is we do a budget, a yearly budget. We kind of review the yearly budget. And we're often doing it while we're driving somewhere long distance. And so the kids are in the car and we're kind of talking through the budget. One of us is working the laptop while the other one's driving. And the kids are seeing that happen. So they're seeing that this is a normal thing that people do. It's routine. It doesn't have to be super emotional if you don't let it. You can have these normal conversations, and it allows them to see themselves doing that sometime in the future. If we keep it hidden from them, if we always keep it behind closed doors, then it's a mystery to them. We need to be thinking, kind of extrapolating our kids' futures out and thinking, how are they going to do this with their spouse one day? Well, if we show them, that's good. That's a good teaching opportunity for them. Hey, Eric, it's a good investment in the relationship.
Invest in your relationships. Absolutely. There's a study. I think it's the University of Minnesota that did a study on kids and money, and it talked about like the themes that parents teach their kids, and it's talked about saving and spending and that type of stuff. But like the culmination of the study was, at the end of the day, you can teach your kid what you want; they're going to model your behavior. So if we want our kids to have good, healthy views of money, we have to model that behavior. We may be good with our money, but they may have no idea that we're good with our money. And we need to make sure that we have opportunities to where they see us talk about money healthily. They see us spend money healthily. They see us tell ourselves no, right? That's a big one. Like they see us at the store saying, "Oh man, I really want that 80-inch TV." But you know what? We're saving up for vacation. Even if you can afford it.
Sweet, man. I saw it. I saw that 80-incher at Costco this weekend, and I couldn't believe how cheap it was. We immediately, I looked at my wife and I'm like, "You do realize that would fit above the fireplace, right?"
Yeah, but then you're next 80 inches above your fireplace. But man, you have to be like so many feet behind it. And
we are. That's the thing.
Couch.
It actually would be. It would be absolutely perfect for our living room because the way that it's set up, it's so big at this point with the remodel that we have one giant sectional that goes all the way like a big L shape on the perimeter. So I'm literally sitting like 25 feet away from the TV with my feet up on an ottoman, and that would be absolutely the perfect angle.
Dude, are the pictures that good? Like once you put the TV in your house, like I feel like the picture quality just goes away because
Never,
nothing we watch.
never looks like what it looks
It
like
never-
on the demo. No.
Yeah, I just want to watch lava lamps all day long on my TV. I'm going to buy a TV
Yeah.
and just watch,
Or nature documentaries. Those are the two
it.
that you always see.
That's it. Although you are seeing, this is interesting. So for all our friends out there who are really interested in alternative investments right now, if you see the NFTs that are kind of floating around, the non-fungible tokens, it's all this digital artwork that's
Is
all
that different than
block-
cryptocurrency? I'm going to show my level of ignorance right
It
out
is
of the
different
box.
than cryptocurrency, but it's built on the same technology, like blockchain.
Blockchain
So,
stuff?
Yeah, it's built
Yeah.
on blockchain, and it's basically just like, when we were kids, man. I know you're a baseball guy. We'd go buy baseball cards and hope we got I hope that I get a Ken Griffey Jr. Rookie or a Frank Thomas rookie. That's kind of my day. Right now, like they're all digitized and they're backed by these what they call non-fungible tokens. So you watch these auctions and Sotheby's, is it Sotheby's or Sotheby's? How are they? I don't know how to
Sotheby's.
pronounce it.
I
But
don't know.
they're
I don't have
getting
enough
into-
money. I don't have enough money to use them, so I don't know how to pronounce their name.
But what they're talking about is these digital art pieces, and some of them move and some of them are static. But like the thing is now you're gonna have to go buy like these fancy TVs to display them, right? Because think you have digital art. How do you display it?
I just thought you
I'm
you
gonna go ahead
looked
and
at
make
it
a
on
hard-
your smartphone.
You need
Yeah,
a
I'm
high
gonna make a hard
definition
pass. I'm
80
gonna make
inch
a hard
TV.
pass on the digital art.
Yeah,
For now.
yeah. It's all the rage though, man. It's all the rage.
Yeah, I mean, it amazes me how many of our peers are into the cryptocurrency thing, man. And I just, I'm only smart enough to know so many things, and I don't have room in my head for anything else. So I'm not even going to try and learn it.
Here's what I've learned. Here's what I learned early in my career. I had a lot of clients who are real estate people. And what I learned really quickly is that real estate people believe in investing in real estate, very strongly investing in real estate, and oftentimes only in real estate. And I kind of saw that trend. Business owners like investing in their business owners. A lot of entrepreneurs were wired to like take risk. So when we see something come out like Bitcoin or something that's like, we're gonna jump on some trend to try to make money. That's kind of how entrepreneurs work. The entrepreneurs take risks. And I learned that you have to allow people to kind of like feed that desire, if you will. So when clients in the past would come to me and like, I want to do this, I'm like, I don't think that makes sense for you. I started to realize, like, you know what? If someone wants to do something crazy with their money, let's build it into their plan, right? I was talking to Wesley Anderson, and he calls it arcade money. Yeah, I call it your Vegas money. You set aside some money if you want to do something crazy. If you want to buy Bitcoin, if you want to go buy digital art, or you want to go take a risk on GameStop, whatever. You know what? I don't want that. I don't want that. That's not me. That's not what I do. I'm not managing that portion of your portfolio. Let's figure out what are you willing to lose, and you could make a lot more than I could make for you possibly. But that's a different goal. Let's assign purpose to that money, and go do what you want to do outside of what I'm doing for you. So I'm a big believer in attaching purpose. So I'm going to give Wes credit one more time, but I call it people's arcade money when I talk to clients. Hey, what's your arcade money? What's your fun money? Go do something crazy with that, but don't bet the house on it.
Well, and that's the thing, man. You have to assign it somewhere, right? We have blow money built into our budget. Each one of us gets a certain amount out of every paycheck, and that's our money to do with whatever we please. And the difference is we're actually taking it out of the budget. We were going to blow that money whether we assigned it somewhere or not, so it makes more sense to at least make it official. And guess what happens? I can tell you exactly what happens. Here's every ounce of blow money that I've had, for the last 2 months sitting in my wallet. I never spend it. What happened? Actually, to be perfectly honest with you, what happened is I had several $100 bills in there. And when I went to buy something the other day, I just looked just like I showed you, that I've got money in there. And I thought that I had several $100, and my loving wife had gone into my wallet and taken my hundreds out and replaced them with ones. And I was in a somewhat embarrassing situation at a store. Thankfully, I had a debit card, but I mean, we scheduled time to talk about that.
It's like an April
Did she
Fool's
ask
prank.
permission to spend?
No. Yeah, no, she didn't. She didn't, because she knows I wasn't going to spend it. Look, I think she probably thought she was going to do the quick swap, borrow it for a couple of days and put it back. And then I actually had a need for it. And I laugh.
Did she try to deceive you by putting the dollars for the weight? Like, David's going to know if I take out some hundreds, I'm going to replace it with ones that weigh the same, so he'll never know.
Or look the same in there, because all I do is just check to make sure I can flip my wallet on its side like that and see if the money's in there or not. But whatever. What's mine is hers. What's hers is mine. We agreed to that when we exchanged vows. So while it's temporarily irritating, in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't mean much.
Yeah. In our work together, and Eric and I's work together, there is this whole field, and it's pretty new. It wasn't around, I don't think, when I was in graduate school, but it's called financial therapy. Financial therapy really incorporates the principles of financial planning, financial advising with that of family therapy. And so it really is this multidisciplinary field of study. And there are some really interesting bodies of research that are coming out, but they all essentially tell us what we know, which is that money is a source of joy. Money is a source of stress. Money is a source of stress for most relationships. And many relationships think of money as being the number one cause of friction and fighting and distress. And so we all kind of know that, who live in relationship. We experience that. But now we have data to show that it's the case. And then something else that you guys were mentioning earlier, our financial management skills, are the way in which we handle money is very highly correlated with our family of origin and how money was handled in the home in which we grew up. So all things that we've been talking about here, now we have a body of study to demonstrate this.
Yeah, we did a show earlier in the year. We did a series called The Next Normal. We looked at 5 kind of parts of our life, kind of like post-pandemic, like what's the next normal going to look like. And one of the shows was with Sarah Falau, who's the daughter of Stanley, Thomas Stanley, the millionaire next door.
Yeah.
And she talked about, Matt was talking about, like, the skills. What are those skills, those financial skills that we need to perform the role of household CFO?
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, if anybody didn't hear that, you should definitely go listen to it. The Millionaire Next Door, The Millionaire Mind, Stop Pretending You're Rich and Live Like a Real Millionaire. I've read all of Stanley's stuff. And, I think the thing is, we tend to fill our minds with crap. I don't remember who said the statistic, but the average adult doesn't do much to improve themselves. And I hate to say that, but the fact of the matter is, what I would challenge anybody to name the last nonfiction book that they read, and in my circle of friends, they can probably rattle off a few of them because I run with people who think like I do. But, there's no secret in terms of what it takes to be a millionaire in today's world. I mean, Stanley wrote the blueprint for it. I don't even view that as a nonfiction book. I view it as an instruction manual. And if you do exactly what this guy says that millionaires do, you can't help but be a millionaire. Here's a fun fact. People are millionaires because they know how to handle their money and they're disciplined and they don't abandon the plan. People who are not millionaires, they don't know how to handle money. It's really that simple. And you can't, Stanley said in one of his books, you've got to make sure that you understand the difference between the ultra wealthy and the average millionaire, right? You can't factor in Hollywood or sports celebrities or whatever else, because look at how many people are given tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in sports, and 5 years after retirement, they're dead broke because they didn't know what to do with it. Or same thing, lottery winners. You give somebody who doesn't know how to handle money $100 million and expect them to handle it all of a sudden. They don't have the sense to do it. And it's not that we don't have the ability, it's that it's uncomfortable to do that. It requires effort, it requires work. And so for me, we live in a house well below our means. I could live in a much nicer house than what I live in. Why do I live where I live? A, I have no mortgage. B, I have great property taxes. C, I have a great school system. Well, guess what? If you read The Millionaire Next Door, you will understand that the average millionaire lives in a home that's $270,000 with low taxes and a great school system. Boom. May not be the millionaire yet, but I'm doing everything I can around my home situation to do that. Don't buy new cars. Let some other fool take the depreciation on a new car. I have not bought myself, I bought myself a new car, and it wasn't even for me. It was for my wife this past year. And the only reason that I bought the new car is because I bought a 20 when the 21s were hitting the lot. They had 2 Tahoes left. It was a color nobody wanted, and this guy dropped his pants on the deal to get it off the lot. I literally could not have bought a used Tahoe for cheaper than what I bought the new one for. It's the only reason I convinced myself that it made sense for us to do that. And so we did. But I mean, I read those books and, again, we try and make it our own. We try and morph what somebody says or whatever else. But if you just look at some of this stuff like it's an instruction manual and you apply it to your life that way, that might seem overly logical, but guess what? It works.
But here's what's interesting about that book. It was a research book. Is he wanted to find the millionaire next door, and then the next millionaire next door. His daughter worked on this. It's their joint work prior to him passing away. It's a research book on basically what are the skills or the behaviors, right? We come back to this behaviors of successful people, of millionaires. It's focus. It's frugality. It's understanding that I have some agency and some control over what happens to my future. It's behaviors. And what's really interesting is they also talk about this idea of converting income into wealth. See, we confuse income and wealth in this country. We think if we have high incomes, we're wealthy, which is not the case at all. I've seen people who make less than 6 figures who are very wealthy, and I've got clients who make well into the 6 figures and have negative net worth, have negative wealth.
So that's why when you do due diligence on anything, whether it's your household or a company, you look at the income statement and the balance sheet, right? Income statement wealth is easy to achieve. You just got to go out and try and figure out how to make a lot of money. Balance sheet wealth is a completely different animal because that's really where your net worth lies and what you're going to perpetuate for the next generation.
And this is precisely why collaborating with Matt over the years has been so helpful for me, is understanding these behaviors, understanding these biases, understanding the things that move people. And that's where we started. Matt came to me and said, "Hey, I got this client. What are your thoughts on it?" And we realized, like, hey, wait a minute. These two fields, these two disciplines, we need to be working together, which led to the work that we're doing now.
You can give couples a manual of how to manage their money, and they still can't do it because fear gets involved, habit gets involved, desire gets involved. There are these emotional experiences that are running in the background that are affecting or driving or influencing behavior. So even if we know exactly the right thing to do, we can't always pull it off if some emotion is competing with that behavior. So for instance, if I know that spending according to my budget, let's say I had $20 allocated today for food, and I spent $20 on breakfast, which is very easy to do here in New Orleans because we have great brunch places. Well,
as do we. My Cuban friend, Mr. Garcia, will concur with that.
So even if I've spent my allocation for food for the day, but it's like 7:00 at night and I'm really hungry, now I have a feeling, an urge, a desire that's competing with the right thing to do. And oftentimes that urge is going to get me to do something that I didn't plan for, I didn't budget for, I didn't follow the rules according to. And so that's another thing that we have to take into account, is that humans are not just codable computers or robots, that we have this like emotion center running in the background that gets us to do all kinds of things that are off script.
Yeah, Facebook's figured that out with display advertising and using the cookies of your web search to target you with specific ads. Right? That's what we're fighting against now. It used to be you walked past and saw the brand new shiny red Schwinn in the front window of the store that sells bikes. It was easy for your parents to pull you by the arm and have you keep walking. Now, the way marketing works, you can't go anywhere. And it's not that they're just marketing something. They're marketing exactly what they know they have the best chance of you buying at any given time.
I've never met with a client Okay. And even people I just talked to, whether client or not, prospect or not, I've never met with anyone who did not have a lofty financial goal or kind of like, and maybe it's not a specific financial goal, but it's some vision for their life. In 20 years, I want to own a beach house or drive this car or buy this type, whatever it might be. Some goal that finances kind of you would need to be financially healthy to attain that goal. And you're gonna like this one because I know we've talked about this book, Atomic Habits. James Clear said, you do not rise to the level of your goal, you fall to the level of your systems. Matt mentioned our habits and bad habits, and people have these habits. Habits are probably the most basic building block of systems. And if we have good habits and we can develop good habits, whether we have a budget or not, whether we have regular meetings with our spouse or not, but if we've developed these habits of frugality, these habits of being able to focus on meeting certain goals or objectives that we set out, then we're more than likely to be successful. And as a financial planner, as a financial advisor, it's trying to recognize, okay, what are those habits that need to be changed? And it could be something as simple as, hey, why don't you schedule a monthly date with your wife and just look at your bank statement? That's it. Just look at it and just say, hey, wow, we spent a lot on, my God, we spent 30% of our money on eating out. Do we value that? No, because we didn't save for our kids' college. So maybe we need to cut back on it. Just that simple conversation of recognizing those habits and those spending patterns, which are habits, can change the projection and the outlook of our finances.
Well, I'll tell you what, man, to comment on what you just said, you said you've never met with a client that didn't have lofty goals. That's because those people have goals, right? They know they need a financial planner to help them achieve what they want. They need that accountability, the advice, the objective third-party view. Think about how many people are out there running around that have zero goals whatsoever. They're just going day to day, hoping for the best. That's what blows my mind. What you said doesn't surprise me a bit, because if they've gotten to you, they recognize that they need help or that they want help or somebody to give them that objective. You're probably as much a mediator as anything else, or you could be, I would imagine, in many circumstances when you get in front of couples. I mean, I know Dr. Matt is for sure, but even on I can't imagine. I don't know what would drive a bigger wedge in a home more than money. I mean, it's got to be the number one.
Yeah, well, it often is kind of cited that way, but money itself is probably not the actual wedge. It probably is fear or mistrust, and like scarcity fear. We're not going to have enough, or you're doing something that you're not being honest about with our money. Those like fear things are probably the actual mechanism of the wedge that you're talking about, but it shows up symbolically as finances or money. But yeah, people really get stressed out and worked up and bent out of shape and disconnected over finances.
Yeah, money. We often say money might not be the reason for an argument, but it's the fuel that makes that
Eric,
argument worse.
we often say it's running in the background a lot of times for decisions in homes. Any time that as a family we're talking about doing something different, there's a financial component to it somewhere that we have to address. Do we have money for that? Do we have money set aside for that? Have we planned for that? Are we going to have to reallocate some money to that? So the money's in the background, even if it's not the forefront thing. But Dave, I want to go back to something that you're saying about people who make it all the way to Erik have goals. Erik is a financial professional, and I think this is one of the findings from the Millionaire Next Door, is that millionaires, or people who are making money and managing their money well, value spending money on financial professionals. That's something that is part of their value system, is that this is a good use of my money to get some consultation or some advice or some help. And so a lot of my clients are people who value help with their relationship. They're willing to pay me to help them with their relationship. And so they're also people that tend to value other kinds of consultation. And so just from a business perspective, thinking about a market, that there's overlap in mine and Eric's market because we're generally both working with people who value consultation. I think there are people out there who have goals, may not be managing their money well, but just aren't sure that they want to pay for advice yet. And they're probably in many ways selling themselves short.
Well, I can tell you, we're in an industry where an agency principal will literally look for every option they can to not hire a professional to give them advice and try and do it themselves. Internet's made it very, very easy on them. I mean, I look right now at the number of home improvements that I've made, small appliance repair, whatever else. I can go to YouTube, watch a video for 3 minutes, and I can do something that normally would have cost me maybe a couple, $200-$300 to have somebody come out and do. And unfortunately, that's translated into professional advice, right? Well, I can just go read a blog on this and I'll be an expert, or I can Google this and see what other people have said or done. And we're not as willing to do that. I will always remember reading in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the first time that I read it, that if you spend your money on attorneys and accountants, they will always save you more than they cost you. It's the things they know that you're going to run into that you can't even see yet. And I use that line a lot because in what I do for a living, it's really not that much different. I can take a business that's growing and there may be 10 million in sales. Well, guess what? I represent multiple businesses that are 50 or 100 million a year in sales. So I understand the challenges that they're going to face going from 10 to 50 and 50 to 100. And so the decisions they make now are going to have a huge impact on them down the road. Mm-hmm. This is no different than that. And people need to be willing to spend the money to go and get a professional to help them because guess what? They're not a professional in that area of expertise.
Here's what I find, and I remember years and years and years ago, and these may be some terms that y'all aren't familiar with, but probably like 10 years ago was kind of the robo-advisor came out, right? And basically the robo-advisors were like, I don't know who the first one was, like Schwab, Vanguard, right? You go in and it's an algorithm. You put your data, you put how old you are, how much money you make, kind of where you want to be 20 years from now, and it kind of spits out a financial plan. And I remember talking to some advisors older than me, and they were terrified that this is going to put us out of business. I'm like, there's no way. Like, we need to look at the robo-advisor and say, what's appealing is the user interface, right? The experience. It's easy, right? What we need to learn as experienced advisors is we need to look at that and say, hey, our clients want to interact with us differently, and there's going to be a market for that. And what I find is that with hiring a financial planner or going to a financial advisor, I find that there's a point in life that just starts to get too complicated. I remember one of my clients called me like, we're ready to start adulting. I mean, they had kids. They were kind of in their early 30s. We're ready to start adulting, right? So we figure we need to hire a financial advisor. And that's why I say people say, what's your average client that you work with? Really, it's someone who's ready to listen to advice and take advice. And those people tend to be the ones where life has gotten complicated, right? Life has gotten complicated. There's things pulling for my money. Should I fund college? Should I fund my retirement? Should I reinvest money into my small business? I know a lot of your listeners are agency principals, and that's a real thing. It's like, should I expand my business? Should I open another site? Should I hire another producer? Should I save into my retirement plan? I mean, these are decisions that people, Google, like you said, they go find it on the internet, and there's data and there's information, but applying it to your specific situation takes experience, takes wisdom, and it takes discernment, quite frankly.
Yeah. I think what you're saying there is that
Agreed.
The internet or having all of this information so accessible to us can help us get in the ballpark a lot of times. But applying whatever that is to our specific situation often does require a professional, and that's what you're really paying for, is that they have experience in the thing that you're wondering about. David, I'm a big proponent of the DIY movement, the don't do it yourself movement. Pay people to do what they went to college for. That is one of my favorite quotes from Eric's father. Pay people to do what they went to college for. It has saved me tremendously. I went to college to be a couples therapist. They didn't teach me a lot of home improvement in couples therapy school.
Agreed.
Yeah, unless like, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Quoting Felix, Matt, going deep.
So listen, you guys are doing this thing now where you've got the continuing education ability for other counselors to go through your program. Talk a little bit about that and what that looks like.
Well, so all counselors, I'm sure, like most other professionals that you talk to, all counselors have to have to achieve a certain number of continuing education units per year. Right now, most of those are all done online by Zoom. Back in the day when we had conferences, we would gather and have, conferences. But so Erik and I have for years done a yearly conference or so where we do a 1 hour, 2 hour session on, some kind of financial and relationship topic. We've expanded that a little bit this year and in the last year to include these longer sessions, longer workshops to really try to empower counselors to level up their own financial abilities and skills so that they can address that more fully with their clients. As a professor, I regularly get the chance to ask my students, like, what do you feel like you're missing still? What do you not feel real competent or confident in? And so over the years, they've informed me about a few different issues, but one of them is finances. I mean, graduate students often are in debt. They don't have a lot of money. They don't know how to manage their money well. They may have not come from families that manage their money well. So it's just not something they're comfortable with. And so they're going to avoid that with their clients. And so something Erik and I have been doing for the mental health community in Louisiana is offering these workshops to help people learn, to help counselors, professionals learn more financial skills so that they can bring that to their counseling consulting work.
And that's led into a workshop that we're going to be leading, a 2-day workshop on counselors who want to launch a private practice. So we're going to go in there. We're going to teach them from, obviously, Matt's going to teach the counseling parts.
The counseling parts.
You like
yeah,
that
so
counseling?
as it turns out, most counselors don't know
Yeah.
anything about business either. Most mental health professionals don't know anything about business, but they all dream of running their own business and having their own private practice. And in graduate school, we teach them how to do counseling, but we don't teach them anything about signing a lease or just all the business aspects of a practice. And so we're working on workshops to really support that aspect as well.
Cool. What else, man? This is your show, Erik. We got about 5 minutes before we have to drop off. Use this as your sounding board. Do a shameless plug, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, y'all check out, follow us. Go to building-us.com. Follow our podcast. Matt mentioned it earlier. We're kind of a little bit of an open forum where we bring in. We do stick to this topic of relationships and money. Sometimes it's couples specific. Sometimes it's community relationships, kind of how we relate to our communities. But sometimes it'll be Matt and I. Sometimes we'll bring on guests. We have depending on when this episode airs, we have a series right now called Simple. And the idea is they're shorter episodes, under 15 minutes. And we want to give people real practical, tactical things that they can do to make a deposit into their emotional bank account. So it's a 6-part series where our first episode just dropped. It's April 6th, so it dropped last week. But we're going to follow this series up with a simple series on money. Simple money, like one thing per episode that you can do to up your, I don't know, a practical or tactical thing that you can do to enhance your finances.
Who's the one that came out with the emotional bank account first? Was it Gary Smalley or Les Parrott or Bruce Wilkinson? It was one of those three, because I remember being in the newly married Sunday school class, watching the video series of all the things that as newly married couples we were going to face. And the concept of the emotional bank account was the one thing that I can remember 30 years later.
I don't know, but I know like Larry Burkett was kind of like in the,
oh yeah, he was in that mix too.
Christian money space. He was kind of like the
he was Dave Ramsey before Dave Ramsey
was another one of those
Ron
folks.
Blue, he was too. Yeah,
I don't know about
Ron Blue's still around.
Came up with the financial bank account metaphor. It may have been Gary Smalley. I'm not exactly sure, but it's been around a long time. But that has always resonated with people. Is that we know that it's hard to give something that you don't have, and so if you're kind of depleted emotionally, if your spouse is feeling depleted emotionally, it's hard for them to give back something to you. And so making sure that we're depositing into that is important to us. Our show also has covered lots of topics over the last year for sure. But a recent series that we did was interviewing a couple who were just about to have their first child. A month before their baby was born, we interviewed them, and then we followed up a month after the birth to see if it went as expected, to see how it's going. And, it's just so interesting.
Yeah.
How much we like envision and plan and think things are going to unfold, and then we have a baby, and it doesn't quite go like we thought. So that I think that those shows are really interesting as well, kind of the before and after shows. And I'm interested in just about anything that has to do with family life and relationship life. So parenting topics, parenting adult kids. I'd like to do a short series in the near future around divesting wealth to kids. That's something I hear about in counseling a lot with my clients, is that giving away money is sometimes really hard for parents, and it's sometimes really hard for the kids. And so figuring that out and talking through that and getting some good voices together on that is something, Eric, that I'd like to do in the future.
Yeah, I think not so much on the technical side. Like we'll bring in some technical people and talk about the technical stuff.
We have lawyers who can handle the technical aspects, but
it's the emotional side that's interesting.
I think you guys should do a series on multi-generational businesses. And
that's a good one.
Fathers and sons, or mothers and daughters, fathers and daughters, mothers and sons. I mean, I can tell you, I don't know if every other industry is the same, but multi-generational insurance agency seems like you've got a 50% chance you got a train wreck on your hands.
Or 75%. We are doing a series, and David, you and I have talked about this. We're going to do a 3 or 4 part series on special needs and the impact that has on the family and finances. But I know we're about to wrap up here. Let me do another shameless plug. We're talking about building us, but if you go to my financial site, plan-wisely.com, and you're interested in learning more about kind of on the financial planning end, what does it look like to work with the financial planner? What does it look like to have someone else manage your money? You can always put a time on my calendar right there. I'd love to have a conversation.
Do you still have the landing page for insurance agents specifically?
Yeah. Agentendgame.com. If you go to agentendgame.com, it's basically financial planning targeted, geared towards insurance agency owners. And the idea is that, like, we need to exit from this game at some point. I'm a principal owner of an agency. I've got an exit strategy. That's part of the planning process. So agentendgame.com.
People, you're out there working hard for your money every day. You're producing like crazy. You're amassing income statement, wealth, but you don't know about that balance sheet. You need to reach out to Mr. Erik Garcia and let him help you through the next stage of your life. Guys, it's been an honor to have you on the podcast. I love what you're doing. Glad to have you on. You're welcome to come back anytime. I hope everybody took something away from this, and that you are able to go and check out Building Us and a lot of the things these guys are doing. Maybe not sound like as much of a sexy topic as how to close huge middle market accounts, but I can assure you, I would much rather focus on building my home life than my work life any day of the week. And anything that makes that easier is certainly something that attracts my attention. So, guys,
we talk about sex sometimes.
Ooh,
so
what's that?
Yeah. So here's a cool. We'll leave you with this statistic here, right?
Perfect.
Matt, what's the statistic or the numbers? Couples who report financial problems report bad sex life. But is that what
I don't have those in front of me, but
like
a lot. Yeah. High
just make it up.
correlation
That's okay.
between
They're not gonna know the
financial
difference.
distress and sexual distress or dissatisfaction in a relationship.
That doesn't surprise
Sexy.
me. Yeah, it doesn't surprise
It
me
is
a
sexy.
bit.
This is sexier than middle market.
We're getting racy now. Now it's a party, people. Well, listen, I know that you guys have to run. Again, thank you so much. Look forward to this, Aaron, and stay tuned because more's coming from these guys. They're making waves. Everybody have a great day.
You've been listening to the Power Producers Podcast. You can follow Killing Commercial Insurance on Facebook and YouTube. And if you want to take your game to the next level, check out our book, The Extra 2 Minutes, and our website, killingcommercial.com.